This year, the real tough cream puff is having his 20th birthday, and what a duo of decades it has been. Ever since his monochromatic debut, Kirby has defined himself as one of Nintendo's most charming franchises, and certainly HAL Laboratory's most prolific character. Whether he was flying through the air, blowing up giant clock comets, or spinning himself into a yarn tank, Kirby has done it in style. Now over a decade old, Kirby had been into adventures spanning multiple consoles and handhelds, but by 2004, Kirby had been reduced to merely another series on the popular Game Boy Advance. With his creator gone and his home company relying on other developers to help, some began to wonder where Kirby would go. In 2004, Nintendo had launched the unique successor to the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo DS. Gamers had a level of uncertainty regarding the new dual-screen, touchscreen handheld, and releases such as Super Mario 64 DS only made it appear like a portable Nintendo 64. Opinions of many such critical gamers shifted when, in June 2005, HAL released Kirby's first Nintendo DS release, Kirby Canvas Curse. In Canvas Curse, Dreamland is turned into a world of paint by an evil witch named Dracia. Making chase, Kirby ends up in her painting world, and Dracia curses him into ball form. Thankfully, her magical paintbrush falls into your hands, allowing you, yes you the player, to help Kirby fight off Dracia and save Dreamland once again. With Kirby turned into a ball, he does not have much in the way of movement, so his control is regulated to the touchscreen. Kirby moves forward automatically to start, and upon tapping him, he rushes forward in a dash. Or if he has a copy ability, he uses his ability and dashes if he can. Besides just tapping Kirby, you get the ability to draw him a path, drawing a line of paint using a magical brush. Kirby will move along the line in the direction you draw it in, so he can move around in multiple ways. You will have to keep note of how much paint you have left though, as you have a limited supply while Kirby is airborne. While Kirby moves onward to your whim, you also need to take note of enemies and blocks and buttons, all of which can be manipulated by your touch. You can destroy blocks or freeze enemies in their path, allowing Kirby to attack or avoid them with ease. Some gateways require your touch to open, and others require the pink ball to hit, creating a synergy between your stylus and the in-game hero. The goal of each level is the usual, but each level is also complete with its own set of 3 medals, all of which can be found with the right ingenuity and skill. These medals can be used to unlock music and other options outside of the main game, and they can also unlock challenge levels as well as other playable characters. Not only can these medals be found in-game, they can also be collected through Rainbow Run mode, requiring limited time or paint to beat a level. There are only 3 boss battles outside of Dracia herself, and each of them is played out in a minigame. Paint Roller forces you to connect the dots of each unique drawing before a bomb takes out Kirby. Kracko is fought in something akin to Arkanoid, except you draw the panel, bouncing Kirby back at enemy and block alike. Finally, King Dedede puts you in control of a runaway cart, guiding Kirby to flying food items in order to speed up and beat the evil king. Only once every world has been passed will you finally get a chance to fight a boss using the main game mechanics, but it's totally worth the wait. Kirby Canvas Curse was the game that showed people that the DS could handle, and it received praise across the board for its unique gameplay mechanics. It was no massive seller, but it had the reception and initial response to keep it among the top-selling DS games at the time. In 2006, however, Kirby would return to more traditional gameplay with flagship's second full Kirby adventure, Kirby Squeak Squad. Squeak Squad begins with our hero about to enjoy a big slice of strawberry shortcake when he finds that his stash has been taken away. He thinks King Dedede is to blame, but he quickly discovers that a group of pirate mice called the Squeak Squad has taken his food for themselves. What results is a wild goose chase around Dreamland, all for a piece of cake. Squeak Squad returns Kirby to a classical platformer experience, although this time the use of the second screen integrates itself greatly into the mechanics. Everything that Kirby swallows ends up sucked into his stomach, which is located on the DS's bottom screen. Anything that is in a bubble remains in his stomach until it is popped, releasing whatever is inside it. This allows special healing items and even copy abilities to be stored in his gullet for a time. Using the touchscreen, players can merge certain items together, creating Maxim Tomatoes or even 1-ups in the process. Also, provided he gets special copy scrolls, Kirby can combine copy abilities to create special new attacks, such as Fire Sword. These copy scrolls can also improve Kirby's abilities outside of merging with others, such as doubling the size of his hammer attacks or giving Spark a more plasma effect. Besides boosting Kirby's usual weaponry, Squeak Squad introduces a few new unique copy abilities, including Metal, Bubble, and Animal. Yes, Animal. Though the most unique copy ability in this game is the Ghost ability, allowing Kirby to possess most enemies in the game. Too bad he gets access to this one a little too far into the game. The environment is also useful when using copy abilities in this game, as certain attacks affect the landscape directly. Who knew Kirby started forest fires? Maybe he is more villainous than I suspected. Outside of food and copy abilities, Kirby's stomach is equally useful in carrying treasures, which he can find in each level. These take up space though, so not everything can be stored in him at all times. He's not a walking bag of holding. Occasionally, the Squeak Squad will attempt to steal large treasure chests away, and in that time, Kirby needs to fend them off and take the treasure away if he wants to guess what's inside. The Squeak Squad member you face ranges from Storo, the brawn of the group, to Doc, the brain. I shouldn't forget about their leader, the powerful Daroche. After escaping from or defeating the attacker, Kirby can finally open his treasure, which can contain keys for bonus levels, sprays to change his color, and pieces of artwork puzzles. Man, this treasure better be worth it! Outside of those elements, the game is pretty much a standard Kirby affair. Despite the little additions to the gameplay, fans and critics alike were not thrilled. The game felt too simple compared to the previously masterful Canvas Curse, and reviewers did not find the touchscreen stomach to be too useful in-game. Still, the game would become a success in sales. But unfortunately for Flagship, it would be closed shortly thereafter. After Kirby Squeak Squad, the hero of Dreamland laid low for an extended period of time. Yes, there was Kirby Superstar Deluxe for the DS, but by 2010, many wondered if Kirby was ever coming back to consoles. Well, that E3, Nintendo unveiled a unique Wii platformer looming in the horizon, Kirby's Epic Yarn. Kirby's Epic Yarn was developed by Goodfeel, a developer who had worked with Nintendo before on Wario Land Shake It and Luxley's lineup. The game started development as a new property entitled Keito no Fluff, or Fluff's Yarn. Originally starring Prince Fluff, the game turned into a Kirby adventure mid-development, and in October 2010, Kirby's Epic Yarn was released, to much acclaim. In Kirby's Epic Yarn, Kirby is walking through Dreamland when he encounters a tomato and tries to eat it, unaware that it belongs to the evil sorcerer Yin Yarn. The magician sucks Kirby into a magic sock, warping Kirby into the magical world of Patchland, a land made entirely of fabrics. In the transition, Kirby is turned into yarn. Being made of yarn prevents the ex-Puffball from inhaling, but thanks to the Metamato he ate, he was able to transform and use his body to defeat enemies. He saves Prince Fluff from a yarn monster, and he finds out that Yin Yarn has torn apart Patchland, needing strands of magic yarn to pull the world back together. Kirby decides to work with Prince Fluff to save Patchland and stop Yin Yarn from committing his malicious deeds once and for all. Kirby's Epic Yarn is a platforming adventure that deviates heavily from the classic Kirby formula. Kirby can no longer inhale enemies and gain their powers, but instead, he can throw a portion of himself out to grab onto enemies and unravel them into balls of yarn. He can then subsequently throw said balls of yarn at others, destroying blocks, enemies, and other things in Patchland. Cooperative play has returned, with the second player assuming the role of Prince Fluff. As Patchland is made of a multitude of fabrics, just about every mechanic in the game is fabric-based. Kirby and Fluff can manipulate the world by pulling threads or opening zippers to reveal new pathways. Quicksand unravels like a striped sweater, and massive snowballs are made of soft cotton. Those of you with cold dead hearts might want to avoid this game if you don't want to die from cuteness. Oh, it's so cute! Get it away from me! Besides using fabric abilities, both Kirby and Fluff can transform into a number of vehicles and forms. For example, both heroes can change into a duo of UFOs, abducting enemies and subsequently letting out massive blasts of energy. They can become a rocket-powered off-road vehicle to race against other yarn beings. They can even become fire engines, shooting water all over the burning landscape. However, perhaps the most destructive form is the tank, which decimates everything with its giant missiles. Outside of these transformations and fabric abilities, Epic Yarn has one major change. There is no way to die. Every hit causes Kirby or Fluff to bounce backwards and shoot a large portion of their inventory over the screen, but even falling into pits yields nothing other than a cute visual of the yarn heroes being pulled back onto land. The game focuses not only on completing levels, but also collecting a large variety of beads. The bead count leads to different colored metals, from bronze to gold. So while there is no death, there can be failure to some extent. Those looking for a challenge in Epic Yarn can try going to Patch Square, where occupants of the large hotel can put Kirby and Fluff together in challenges such as hide and seek or bead collecting. Of course, you need to convince them to occupy the hotel in the first place, requiring you to decorate the hotel rooms with items found in the levels. In the end, these challenges allow the heroes to decorate more furniture and patterns. Not exactly what you'd expect from a Kirby game, that's for sure. In the end, Kirby's Epic Yarn was seen as a great return for Kirby, but it still made people wonder what HAL was doing with their biggest franchise. While they were consulting with Goodfeel for Epic Yarn, gamers worldwide found out that HAL was working on not one, but two new Kirby adventures, both releasing late 2011. While the Nintendo 3DS launched early 2011, HAL was working on a completely new Kirby experience for the DS. What emerged was the real-time platformer strategy game Kirby Mass Attack, which released in the US September 2011. In Mass Attack, Kirby is relaxing at the Popopo Islands. Popopo, get that? When Necrodus, the leader of the evil Skull Gang, attacks Kirby and splits him into 10 smaller copies. He destroys all but one copy of Kirby and rushes off to continue his dark plans. The remaining Kirby encounters a star, representing Kirby's heart, which tells him to follow it and go on an adventure to save him and stop Necrodus and the Skull Gang's evil plans. Mass Attack takes a few notes from Canvas Curse in that players do not control Kirby, or Kirby's, themselves. Rather, by touching the screen, a star appears which guides the Kirbys toward it. The Kirbys can grab onto the star and be lifted along a path for a limited time, too. The star can also dictate to the Kirbys which enemies to attack when, whether by tapping the enemy directly or throwing individual Kirbys toward it. Guiding Kirbys to fruit build their meter up, and at certain points, it creates another Kirby, up to 10. While these 10 Kirbys cannot inhale the enemies they encounter, they can give them quite a wallop. Hit points are also different in this game. If a Kirby gets hit, he turns blue, and the second time he gets hit, he turns into a ghost. A second Kirby can help bring him back to life, though, bringing strength in numbers for offense and defense. And keeping numbers high is important, because some levels require a set number of Kirbys, so it's best to make sure all the Kirbys make it. What is equally important is to collect as many medals as possible. These medals populate the many stages, whether they're hidden in roots, close to extreme danger, or just waiting behind a closed path. As you collect more medals, you obtain new unlockables, including a series of mini-games, all of which add to the style of the game. Such games include Kirby Quest, a touch-based RPG with multiple Kirbys, Strato Patrol EOS, a top-down shooter with arcade action, and Brawl Ball, a new take on Kirby's Pinball. Along with the main game, these little games make Kirby's resume that much deeper. It also makes me want a Kirby RPG. Do you hear me, Hal? Make it happen. Kirby Mass Attack was well received by reviewers across the board, finding the mechanics to be a welcome break from standard Kirby platforming, and some found it to be a wonderful use of the touchscreen, just as the DS would be replaced by the 3DS. Even so, Kirby was not done in 2011. Just a month later, HAL would release its first Kirby console platformer in over a decade, Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Before getting to Return to Dreamland, HAL had been trying to produce a console Kirby since Kirby Air Ride. The first attempt was a side-scrolling platformer with an emphasis on 4-player cooperative play, but the team had trouble getting the 4-player experience to work well on the GameCube. This was actually shown at E3 2005, but never released. The second project was a fully 3D Kirby adventure, but it just didn't work out. And a third project made use of cell shading to make a Kirby game with a pop-up book aesthetic. Development of Kirby's Return to Dreamland really began in 2010, when the team came together to make a single-player adventure first and a cooperative game second. Kirby's Return to Dreamland is a return to the classic Kirby style of gameplay, with a few additions to multiplayer options and then some. In this adventure, Kirby is running away from King Dedede and Bandana Waddle Dee when they and Meta Knight spot a hole in space. From the portal, a large spaceship emerges and crash lands into Popstar. Inside, the heroes find the alien Magolor, who finds that his ship, the Lore Starcutter, has lost its main parts and 120 spheres which power it. Kirby and his crew see his plight, and they decide to help Magolor find the ship parts and help him return home. With that, another Kirby adventure begins, this time with his friends in tow. The adventure plays like any other Kirby side-scrolling adventure, tasking Kirby to reach the end of each level and, at the end of each world, defeat a boss to retrieve parts of the Lore Starcutter. Kirby has a standard inhaling ability, but this time, as players shake the Wii Remote, Kirby proceeds to inhale even harder, prompting large blocks and even large enemies to fall prey into his maw. Inhaling massive amounts of items results in even bigger star spits, creating more destruction in its wake. Also beyond his inhaling ability, Kirby has a few new copy abilities, including the Leaf ability, the Whip ability, and Water ability. These abilities help Kirby move around significant dangers or collect otherwise unattainable items. While there are a number of new copy abilities in Return to Dreamland, Kirby can also receive super abilities, which are timed, highly destructive copy abilities located in specific areas of the game. Here are some examples. Ultra Sword gives Kirby a massive slashing ability to cut down just about anything in his way. The Monster Flame allows Kirby to conjure up a horizontal beast of fire across the screen. And finally, Snowball turns Kirby into a giant snowball, crushing any pin or enemy in its path. There is no messing with the Super Kirby. At the end of each of Super Kirby's destructive feats, a portal opens up, letting Kirby and his friends venture into an unstable dimension to recapture energy spheres from evil beings called Sphere Doomers. In these areas, Kirby and company need to rush through as fast as possible or risk being crushed in the collapsing space. The game's most challenging areas take place in this dimension, because it takes not just skill to get through, it also takes speed. Kirby's Return to Dreamland can be played all well and good alone, but the game feels its best in cooperative gameplay. Rather than call helpers to assist, up to 3 friends can join in a number of forms. The game allows everyone to be a different colored Kirby, although the pink Kirby is the one leading Puffball no matter what. Otherwise, players can choose to be one of Kirby's friends, each with their own perks. Meta Knight slashes his sword quickly and uses his cape to fly around at will. King Dedede uses his large body to swing a hammer with ease. The game's only newcomer is Bandana Waddle Dee, a slightly clothed Waddle Dee who uses a spear to fend off the game's many foes. Whew, who knew a Waddle Dee could be so deadly? Outside of the main game, the Energy Spheres can unlock 2 extra minigames, Ninja Dojo and Scope Shot. In Ninja Dojo, players have to swipe the Wii remotes at the right time to throw ninja stars at passing targets. In Scope Shot, players work together to shoot down massive mechanical monsters, all while protecting themselves from oncoming missiles. Besides the minigames, the Energy Spheres unlock both practice rooms for copy abilities and challenge rooms, where Kirby has a given ability and a time limit to rack up as many points as possible. As if these weren't enough to build up the game content, there's also an EX mode, allowing players to replay the same game with less hit points and more devious boss fights. Return to Dreamland was given mostly positive feedback when it released, although many saw that the game felt simple after the incredibly unique Kirby's Epic Yarn. Still, the style and light innovation helped keep the game in a positive light. It showed the gaming world that HAL could still do console Kirby justice, even if it was several years late. This year, Kirby celebrates his 20th birthday with Kirby's Dream Collection Special Edition. Complete with 6 of the many games mentioned in this retrospective, some extra challenge stages, and a historical overview of Kirby's game lineup, it is not something a Kirby fan should miss. After all this time, it still leaves one big question though. Where does Kirby go now? Looking at his past though, I imagine we will all be having fun with him, wherever he goes. Happy birthday, Kirby. Now grab yourself some cake. Or inhale it, I don't judge.